Every Airtable system eventually becomes messy. At first, the base is clean. The fields make sense, statuses are clear, and everybody knows where data is supposed to go. But then real life happens. People start entering data differently. Notes field become the catch-all for any data or information entered. Duplicate records appear, statuses aren't used, and before you know it, your beautiful Airtable system is no longer a source of truth. So in this video, we're going to be testing something super practical. Can Claude help us clean up a messy, retired database? Let's find out. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Gareth, and this is Gap Consulting, and it's our mission to help you unlock the full potential of Airtable and the related no-code tools. And in this video, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the Claude MCP to understand how we can leverage a tool like Claude to read our database and help us come up with a path forward so that we can take an old messy database and keep using it and clean it up. So let's start by giving a quick tour of the database that we're going to take a look at. This is a database that we actually use at Gap Consulting on a daily basis. It has been a part of our internal operations for about 2.5, 3 years now. So let's dive in first to Airtable just so we know what we have. Now we've got stuff like users and their credits and how those things tie over to requests and transactions and memberships, coaching sessions. We're tracking a lot of information here. A lot of this is interrelated, but then you're going to notice up at the top, we've got this little divider on our tables. Let me zoom in to make this a little bit easier to read. This is something that you might see in a lot of professionally designed databases because it's basically suggesting that either on the right-hand side, this is either a different operation entirely, or maybe it's deprecated. So a lot of times when we're living in a live environment and databases are continually being updated, you might see this kind of a divider that's splitting up the data. And in this particular case, it's suggesting that, hey, some of this is like internal tool stuff, payables, bills, training videos. But then we get into some other information like inquiries. This is deprecated. We don't use this anymore. Reviews, lightly used, but not in a daily ongoing way. And then the fill out payload was specific to our build. When we were setting up this database and building it for the first time, we kind of mapped out what needed to be built, and these things still live here. So there's a lot of information here that's not live, it's not helpful, it's all part of the initial structure and not anything that we are using on a day-to-day basis. Not only that, but there's a ton of messy data in here too. People records that probably need to be scrubbed out. They're people who are not active in this particular part of our business and don't need to be here any longer. Or maybe old transactional data, or just records that really don't belong anymore and could stand to be cleaned up. So let's start with a simple prompt to Claude. And you'll see that before we actually start with our first prompt, I just want to call out that I started by giving Claude the context. Number one, I'm saying, hey, this is a YouTube video, so please don't put or surface personal information about the users in our database. You know, we don't really want to just make everything fair game here. I'm trying to put some boundaries on this so that we can actually demonstrate the features and not be insensitive to data privacy. So that was the purpose of my initial post, but then I'm also telling Claude where to find this information. Now, number one, this is through the MCP. If you haven't yet used or connected Claude to Airtable, do so through the MCP by going to your connectors here, manage the connectors or add a connector, add Airtable. And if you add more than one database, make sure you tell Claude which database you're referencing. So here I've called out the name of the base as well as the app ID. If you're not sure where to find the ID for an app or database in Airtable, just look at the URL. Once you've gone into and clicked on a database in Airtable, up at the URL, there will be a long thread. It looks like gibberish, but you'll find a part that in between slashes says APP and then has the random string. As you can see here, this is my app ID that I grabbed directly from the URL. It's usually about this long. Go ahead and plug that in to tell Claude exactly which database we're going to be talking to. Now let's come in with our first prompt that I'm copying from another window. And basically, it's straightforward and simple. It says, you are helping me clean up an Airtable database. We're going to start by inspecting the structure of the base. Do not make any changes yet. One thing that I really need to call out here is that I don't want to make changes at the same time that I'm doing analysis. So I want to make it very clear to Claude that we are looking at the structure of the base. We are not going in and making edits yet. So that's number one. And then I'm calling out to Claude, I need you to identify the main tables, the purpose of each table, the fields that appear important for reporting or operations, then fields that may be underused, inconsistent, redundant, or unclear. Those can usually be cleaned up. And then lastly, any obvious cleanup risks that I should review before making changes. And then we're just saying, return your findings as a structured audit. So I'm sending that question in. Let's resume as soon as Claude has performed its analysis. It didn't take Claude very long to perform an analysis. It's actually still writing to the page as we're recording, but let's go into what it started to return. So it said, hey, look, I'm performing the audit here on this app. Here are the tables that I've identified. You'll notice that it is correctly calling out things like a spacer or a divider table. It has the internal feature tracker for the dev team. So Claude is smart enough to understand what the table purposes are, and it's calling those out directly here. Then it's doing exactly what we asked. Here are the fields that are going to be critical for reporting or operations. Here are those fields that look like they're a bit underused. And it should come as no surprise, here we are in an old database. We've got deprecated fields that as our developers were building, we were saying, hey, we're not using this anymore. So we even updated the field name to include the word deprecated or legacy in some cases. So this is old information here that we knew was not being used in the database, but often when you're building, you don't want to just delete something and cause potential problems upstream or downstream. And so we often keep those fields and we just relabel them, and that's what Claude is picking up on here. So it's correctly calling out that there are a lot of things that are underutilized, and these are the things that we should probably take a look at. Now, it's also calling out some high-risk issues, and this is exactly what we asked it to do. It is calling out the fact that, we have these deprecated fields with a question mark. It could be ambiguous. There could be impacts to other processes like Zapier or Make automations or integrations with fill out forms or Softer if we have a web application associated with this database. In this case, all of those things apply. So it is very important that we understand the changes that we're making. And then, of course, any changes that we do make, we have to run extensive tests afterwards to ensure that old legacy information wasn't actually having some kind of function. But overall, the first rule here is simple. We are asking Claude to perform analysis and to give us context of what we're looking at before any changes are being made. That is the purpose of our initial prompt through the MCP. And so to accomplish this, Claude has used the read capabilities within the MCP to read tables and fields and records and return a proper audit of the current state of the database. Quick pause here. As we're going through this, if you find yourself feeling a little bit overwhelmed and you feel that you would not be able to execute this on your own, I want to call out that we offer strategy calls to our viewers. You can sign up for free at gapconsulting.io/strategy-call. We'll ask you a little bit of information about whatever it is you're working on, and then we will invite you to join us on a call where we can talk through your goals, where you're getting stuck, and help you develop a plan to move forward. If that sounds like a good idea, sign up today and get your free strategy call. Now let's pivot to our second question, which is going to be more about the detail inside of the database. So here I'm going to paste in another question. This one is simply saying, review the records in the base. We want to look for data quality issues. Is there bad data? Is there data that needs to be scrubbed or updated or just deleted or archived? What is the status of the information in the database? That's what we're putting in our new question here. Let's see what Claude returns. So Claude is coming back now with a response, and this is where this audit really starts to get useful because Claude is able to make the cleanup of the data so much simpler. Now, a key takeaway here is to not trust Claude's output entirely. Let's not ever rely 100% on the decisions made by AI, but let's use it as a launching point to get to the information we are looking for that much more quickly. So in this particular example, Claude is returning a lot of information about blank required fields. In this particular case, we have email addresses for users who don't have names. That is an oversight. There should be some data cleanup there. We also have vague or incomplete names or inconsistent capitalization. This happens in our app because people are signing up on their own very often. And of course, then that means that we have to come in and clean up the way the data is surfaced. We also have dirty data from formatting and role access or mismatches. So Claude is surfacing the fact that we've got records, even in some cases that look like test records or things that are missing linked records. And ultimately, it sounds like, we just need an overall data scrub. So this is going to be common with a lot of existing databases that get a lot of use, that have aged over time. And as I said, let's not use this analysis from Claude without some human oversight. We need to make sure that we take this as a launching point and decide, what can we do with this? And now that we've surfaced the areas that have red flags or at least might need attention, let's get in there and, make those updates ourselves. Do notice, of course, that Claude also brings in the highest priority before making changes. So it's, calling out here, these are the things that you need to, go through. In this case, it's saying the duplicate consultation records. If you delete the wrong one, it breaks the client access. So of course, we need to be really thoughtful about how we apply any updates here, which takes me to the third step of our audit using the MCP. So let's now paste in our third question. And this is one part that I think a lot of demos skip. This is where we're going to actually ask AI to classify the different cleanup steps and really go through and tell us, what do you think that we should just, clean up automatically versus what needs human interaction versus a third category that we do not want to update. So we're calling these out. Number 1, safe to update automatically. Number 2, needs human approval. And number 3, do not update because there's just not enough information to make a reliable change. So I'm going to send this prompt through now, and we'll see what Claude brings back. This one doesn't take very long at all because Claude has already done the majority of the thinking. And what we're asking it to do here is to categorize the information that it's already shared with us. So here it comes in and it's giving us these 3 different categories. If something is all caps, for example, a name in all caps, that's an automatic fix that Claude has no problem doing. Or names that are in all lowercase, no problem. Or double spaces or trailing spaces. These are formatting issues and Claude correctly recognizes that and it says we can make those changes automatically. Category 2, human approval required. This is where Claude is suggesting that humans come in and do some, further analysis. It's taking a look and calling out those areas that are going to be a little tricky. We need to go in with an open mind and make sure that we analyze what the impacts of these changes will be. And then lastly, here are those areas of things that should not be updated. So all in all, we've got the majority of our issues here falling in the needs human approval, but 550 records or so are being impacted by those changes. But notice that we can update, at least by this analysis, at least 50 records approximately, and have those things updated automatically. Now let's go into our fourth prompt. And before we actually touch the data, what I really want from Claude is a plan. So let's go ahead with our prompt that says, create a cleanup plan for this Airtable base. And I want you to organize this plan by the following priority. Number 1, issues affecting reporting accuracy. Number 2, issues affecting workflow execution. And number 3, cosmetic or organizational improvements. Let's go ahead and send this through and see where Claude gets on this output. This output took a little bit longer, but Claude has given us a really extensive output now. So we have all of the issues that are affecting reporting accuracy. It's calling out the risk, if Claude can update this information, and of course, whether we need to review it first or not. So it's showing us the actual impact of this and also calling out, what exactly the benefit of having done all of this will be. Then we break that into priority 2. This is issues that affect workflow execution. And then, of course, lastly, we get into the cosmetic or organizational improvements. So a lot of really helpful information from the audit. If you have an existing Airtable database and one that you think is already working correctly, it might still be worth going through this process just to see those little things that maybe no one has thought about yet that AI can identify quickly for you to get even more out of your system. Now, the last thing I want to do here is show us how we can start actually building a process to make these updates. So we can, of course, ask Claude to make updates directly because the MCP does have read and write access. So we could ask Claude to make changes to our data layer. Personally, I am more risk averse than that. I do not want the AI to be making changes to my data layer, especially in a live environment. So I am instead going to take the approach of this prompt. For anything that needs human review, I'm asking Claude to create a review list that includes the record, the issue, why it needs review, etc. But then I also want to call out that I'm asking Claude to build this in the same database. I want to create a new table here in the database called Audit Cleanup. And as Claude is executing, we should see that table come into existence here. So basically, we're saying create this new table for us so that we can track the progress of the audits as we are going through in our cleanup. Now, based on the settings of your connector, you might get prompted by Claude to give permission. So I really like to say every time I'm working with Claude, you have full permission, as far as I'm concerned, to read information in the database, to look at the schema, to look at the record information, but you need to ask me explicitly for permission anytime you're creating or writing information to Airtable. So I've given that permission. Flipping over here now back into Airtable, we see the new table that was created, and we have the information here that we requested. So of course, it's going to populate all of the 14 review items as well, and we should start to see those filling out on our screen here. So that's it. Those are the steps that you can go through to clean up an existing Airtable database with the help of Claude through the Airtable MCP. I hope you got a ton of value from this video, and if you did, make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If there are questions that you have that we didn't get to in this video, swing by our website because we've put a ton of resources together. And I want to call out that we offer a free strategy session. If you're curious about how to move forward on your next Airtable build, talk to our team. We offer this completely free to help you get unstuck so that you can move forward in your no-code solutions. Grab your free call at gapconsulting.io/strategy-call, and we will be excited to learn more about how we can help with your next project. That's it for this one. The most important thing, keep on building.